Hello and namaskar. Friends, we all watch television as you are watching now. And we all agree that a formidable component of what we watch in television is news. But have we ever thought that how do the news come from its place of occurrence to our home TV set? There are various people, there are various ways who are involved in bringing the hot news from the place of occurrence to us through a channel, obviously after processing. So, today, in this episode, we are going to discuss the television news production or television news operations. As I have told you, that suppose something happens at a particular place in the world, and then in no time, wherever you are watching the same news in television. How does it happen? This is fascinating. We all are watching news, but we hardly try to think that how does it happen. It's an enormous process, as I have told you, and today we are going to discuss that how does it happen. Well, friends, the entire television news operation in any television news channel or broadcast station has got three components. So, television operations of the present days are done through three different wings. One is known as assignment, which basically deals with reporting from the field, bringing it to the broadcast station. The next is input, which does the processing, polishing, editing, whatever you can say, and make it telecast worthy. And finally, the output when it is telecast live. And most of the television news is telecast live. And what happens in the live? Who does what in the live situation? As the anchor reads in and leads into a story, and edited story from the event, the visual event is being played back, and throughout the screen we see a lot of things like what we technically call upper third and lower third, like the scrolling, the title, the Aston band, the name of the person speaking, etc., etc. So what happens in the live situation, in the live operation? So that is the third wing. So first is assignment, which arranges to bring in the event, the coverage of the event from anywhere in the world. Second is input, which polishes, edits and makes it telecast worthy. And the third is output, which actually puts it on air with all sorts of materials which are required to go on screen. Now gradually we will try to see that each individual wing, what actually does it do. We begin with the assignment. Assignment, as I told you, is in charge of procurement of news stories or news coverages. Like, something has happened somewhere. So assignment assigns a particular reporter, camera team, sound recordist, transports, and then the team goes and gathers the visual, takes some interviews, the reporter speaks something from the spot, etc., and it comes back. So arranging the coverage, assigning the crew, as we call it, and facilitating to reach there and the actual coverage done is basically done by the assignment. My dear friends, these days the coverage is not that something has happened sometime and then in the second half of the day or in the early next morning you show it. No. News as it happens, news when it happens. And this is made possible due to technological advancements, that field reporting live. That means you have to send either a DSNG van, digital satellite news gathering van, which also goes along with the crew member, and the coverage at the spot is transmitted through the satellite to the news center so that it can be telecast live. Or what we call a backpack, just like the students carry or everybody carries these days at the back, and small equipment which through the internet it goes from the place where the news happens to the news center. So live news coverage, or what we call hot switching, that means the anchor leads in to the reporter, anchor in the studio leads in to the reporter at the spot, and then a conversation, anchor is asking question and reporter is explaining from the spot what actually happens or what has happened a couple of minutes before. From the spot he's giving the live inputs which is telecast live throughout the world. So that is also organized by the assignment section. So you have to decide if the news is very important or the event is very important which requires to be telecast live. So you have to organize that also. So basically procurement, that is a recorded material, or the live material or feed, procurement is done by the assignment section. After the raw material comes here to the television center, and we all know that unless and until it is live, you cannot telecast the raw material as we receive. Suppose I have recorded in one sequence, but on the priority basis, on the basis of importance, I would like to telecast in a different sequence. So I need to edit, and there are various shots which we call it NG, not good, which cannot go on air. So I need to edit out those shots, and I need to put the shots which are more important, more relevant. So editing is being done, but before that, a final script has to be made, and the script is made either it is written by the reporter who has gone, or on the basis of inputs if the reporter is stuck in the situation, at the live situation. So obviously he cannot come. He has been sending inputs on the basis of inputs from the spot and inputs from various other places, because the allied information generates from other places like the headquarters of various organizations which are involved with that particular happening. So the news flow, various parts of particular news item or the segments come from various places, and which has to be assimilated. So then the final script is made on the basis of the input of the reporter in the input section, and then it is the editing of the story. And editing of the story, sometimes you require some old footages, that is the library footage. So you have to organize that. So when you refer back to what has happened earlier, or what was the situation earlier and now what it is, any kind of comparison or any kind of callback of the story, we have to put it from the file shot, and that is organized. And also the graphical representations, like you see in the economic stories, a lot of ups and downs are to be shown. So there must be a beautiful graphical representation of the material which are being communicated, so that the viewer understands easily. So that graphics or file shots, etc., are taken care of by the input section. And finally, the most important part of the input section is doing the voiceover, getting a voiceover artist or getting it recorded from the reporter, and then with the help of a video editor or by anybody, you actually dump all this material into the non-linear editing, and then actually the editing is done. Maybe the video editor is doing the editing, but conceptually editing, standing next to him, is the person who is working in the input. So he is actually, if we say assignment is shopping, we get the raw material, and the editing is like cooking. The voiced over news capsule is being prepared in the input section, which is very, very important, and various aspects of a particular television story, the components are materials are being brought in and assimilated in the input section. And my dear friend, what I told you, that what happens when it is telecast live, and mostly the television news bulletin is telecast live. And in that case, somebody at the moment when I watch that particular bulletin, somebody is physically somewhere, like the anchor and the producer and his team. Actually, they are producing the bulletin live. So what goes on air has to be put on air by a group of people led by the producer and spearheaded by the anchor. But not only these two are there, there is a group of people who actually, very painstakingly see that it is a very sleek and it goes without any problem. So what happens when it is telecast live? What we call is online or live production. That means you have various sources, like 3 stories have been covered by the reporter, which have been edited by the input section and dumped in the NLE and the server. So you have 3 visual stories edited, ready with you. Then you have to do the upper third, that means what comes above the screen. Then L band, that means during the elections, the central, the national level election results, state level election results. Or at the bottom, there are several layers which are being scrolled, like the first maybe the share market, the next is important news, and another layer is breaking news, or the Aston band, which says the title or the punchline of the story, or the below super, as we call, the name is superimposed on the picture of the person who is speaking. So all these things are done there. It is the online or live production. And this is very important. So that is there in the live production, which is done by the output team. And I told you that the on-screen look with the upper third, lower third, and L band, etc. So that is being organized by the graphic artists, organized by some others. Some loop is being, some visuals are being played, etc. So already there is a team working under the leadership of the producer, the panel producer concerned, which is who is also known as the output editor, who's the in charge of the output, but maybe not be the in charge always comes in. It is the panel producer for that bulletin who is in charge of the live production of the bulletin. Now, friends, in the live production, there are first thing that you have to prepare the lead-ins, which will be read by the anchor in a live situation. Lead-in, anchor lead as we call it. The lead-in, there's a script which by reading which the anchor will introduce to a particular story, and then the voiceover news capsule, which has been prepared by the input section, which will be telecast. So lead-ins for each story, anchor lead-in will have to be prepared. And then the run order, which is very, very important. The first is headlines, say 3 to 4 or 5, 6 headlines will be there, visualizations of the headlines as we see, and then which will be the first story, which will be the second story, which will be the third story, and the jar of the story, that which story will be followed by a live hot switching. Hot means live and switching means switching over from the studio where the news was being produced to the spot, the locale, the event where it is taking place. So the reporter is standing, so we'll go there straight away. Or it may be a phone in. So all these OB coordination will also have to be done. So the run order, then the anchor lead, then OB coordination, that which story will be followed by a live dispatch for our interaction between the anchor and the anchor in the studio and reporter at the spot, and then where there is no two-way connectivity, the reporter will come over phone, and by phone he will give the latest input, the latest developments, and all these things are to be coordinated and to be noted so that without any faux pas, without any failure, it takes place. And definitely, last but not the least, any breaking news if it comes, obviously the template, the captions, then the templates, that means something on screen it is written, or the loop, it is coming one after the other immediately, and the anchor is briefed accordingly to speak on that particular news, what has happened. You see, news is such a thing that it goes by importance. Today, or today may be a dull day. So all innocuous items become very important. And the other day, which is a very what we call a newsy day, that maybe many important news are to be crowded out because of the fact that there are things which have happened who are much more important, or something particular has happened. The entire world wants to know only on that, and television style is only to give all sorts of versions, all sorts of views, all sorts of angles of that particular story. Some days it happens like newspaper comes with a banner headline, and the page one is completely full of various stories on a particular item. So the modern journalism has become issue based. So as modern television is mostly issue based, something immediately happened and you put all your resources to that particular news. The anchor is just breaking news, and then the reporters are giving their inputs from over phone, and then the panel discussions have started, etc., etc., and then the DSNG van or the backpack has reached along with the reporter. The reporter is filing visuals and stories, and you get their dispatches live. So all these things are to be coordinated and in a flawless manner. Coming to assignment is basically, as we say, not only that after something has happened, you need to send a team, but there is something called advanced planning. So you need to plan. In television, better you plan on the particular day, you are quite happy and quite comfortable because you have planned everything earlier. So the planning, suppose in the calendar we know the parliament is taking place, or a particular bill is coming in the parliament, or there is a nationwide protest by some organizations, or a major conference is taking place, or the international conference, or bilateral or multilateral conference. So I prepare that the resources, that how many reporters will go, who will do the curtain raiser, which will speak about the backgrounds of the incident or event which is going to take place, and who all are the reporters who will take care of various angles and various spots of that particular event. So that is it, the advanced planning. So I must understand that tomorrow what is going to happen, and tomorrow I must alert all my bureaus so that I get, and I'm not in a position that things are happening and I'm unable to give anything because of the fact that I have planned it well. So if something happens, immediately it will come because I have already alerted them. So this is a major work done by the assignment, which is known as advanced planning. And planning is very, very important in television. And then assigning of reporters, camera crew, stringers, and lining up with agencies like the audiovisual agencies that from abroad, how do we get the feed in real time or as early as possible. And I also told you that in sending the equipment or technology which will enable the reporter to send the visuals from the spot to the news center as it happens, live feed through DSNG, and this enables the conversation between the anchor in the studio and the reporter at the spot in a live situation, which we see in a modern television news mostly, and this has become very, very popular. And this is the technology which has made it possible. And in technology, the content has changed. Earlier, the package story, the voice-over news capsule was very important, or mostly it was being telecast. But now this is something that reporting from the spot has become very popular. Now, you have to take care of the unplanned coverages also. So far, we have been discussing that how does assignment take care of planned coverages, and then unplanned coverages. The fire breaks out, an accident takes place. So immediately you have a standby team, and then you have to see that the standby team moves along with proper equipment, and then you start gathering news from your reporter and from other sources, and then through phone in before you reach, and then after you reach through your DSNG or backpack. So that is something which is to be done, including the feed from the audiovisual agencies, the services of which your station is subscribing. So unplanned and planned coverage. So that is primarily is taken care of by the assignment. Live coverages have become very, very essential component of television news, because if your rival channels or other channel gives and then you don't give, then you are lagging behind. So it's not that news as it happens, it is news when it happens. So this is being made possible with the advent of technologies, and several researches are going on of sending the visual from one place of the globe to the other. And if we don't have those gadgets, now we all have telephones, we all have mobile phones, and from mobile phones you can do a live dispatch. Suppose you don't have a two-way connectivity, audiovisual connectivity, you can have a telephone connectivity, and there the anchor can ask you question and you can do a voice dispatch or reporting over telephone, and then the visual of the concerned event can be played back on the loop. In one window on screen you see these days, and the other window is a picture of the correspondent, and the anchor is sitting and then asking questions. So that is a live phone in which is made possible. Now coming to input once again, what actually does is basically the scripting with the help of the reporter who has actually covered the story, and various other sources also. The final scripting is done in the input, and then the recording of the voice by the reporter or by somebody else whose voice is good. And the packaging, the voiced over news capsule, that is made made by the input section, that editing with lot of components like fresh footage, file shots, graphics, sound bites, that means the short speeches or statements of the concerned personalities, of important personalities, and piece to camera, that means the reporter is speaking in front of the camera from the spot. So all these elements, and music obviously if required, so all these elements all together you can put it in a package, and since it is well edited, the package is one of the best possible way of presenting a particular news item as a part of the news bulletin. And then talking about the output, we say the anchor intro, the what the anchor is going to read out, that has to be prepared, and the run order, that which story comes after what, and the on-screen look of upper third, lower third, breaking news, and the live OB phone-in coordination, live online production, and mostly the anchor coordination. Suppose a live connectivity you have established, and then suddenly the minute before you want to go, or a second before you want to go, the connectivity has gone. So obviously, how does anchor manage the show, and what anchor is going to speak unless and until the connectivity comes, and how do the anchor come back to the story as long as the connectivity comes? All these things will have to be coordinated by the producer live. He is the main person. And then the online live production process. It's a television production process. If we could divide into offline and online, the offline is making those visual stories edited and dumped in the server. That is the one preparation, and writing the anchor lead in, etc., and anchor person's voiceover. That means the visual have been edited, and then the anchor reads the visual matching with the visual. So it is the anchor person's voiceover which is said live, but these days these kind of stories are not being telecast very often. And online, we say that basically it's a multiple sources you have to deal with, and you have to select one or two sources right at the moment which will go on air. So from and among various sources, you have to select one or two which will go on air right at the moment. And then studio camera outputs you have edited visual stories, you have live inputs, OB, phone in, and in the production panel, you have the vision mixer who will actually select the source out of various sources available, the switcher, and the CCU, the camera control unit, which will match the outputs of various cameras giving the same shot. and the graphics, as I told you. So all sorts of things are being done in the live production. Now, if we just quickly want to see that what are the major essence of television news production, is that the news production should be sleek, that should not be any faux pas, no mistake, and there should not a frame of black which comes on screen. It should not be. So it should be sleek, flawless, clear, simple production of a bulletin that we need to do it. And it's not very easy, my dear friends. And perfect coordination between what anchor leads in and what comes on screen. So that is something which is also very important. And mind that the producer, the live output producer, online producer, is dealing with multiple sources, taking one after the other in quick succession. So he has to have a presence of mind and a rigorous planning and cross-checking are the two major things which have to be there. Otherwise, you will not be able to succeed. And it's a teamwork. A lot of people are putting a lot of inputs in this flawless production. So everybody should know what is going to happen next. And you must be alert, and your presence of mind should help you in taking right kind of decision at right kind of moment, because a lot of things will not happen according to your planning. And guiding and instructing the anchor, as I said already, that if something goes wrong, and how does he or she manage the situation, and how does he or she come back to the main story when the normalcy is restored. And always think of a plan B, especially in case of last moment available stories, that how do you manage if the stories actually do not come. So all these things, your presence of mind and plan B, cross-checking all facilities and telling all the people involved exactly what is going to happen, these are the key points of success of live news production. So my dear friends, we have tried to tell you how the news is gathered from the ground reality of the place where it takes place. How does it come in a live situation, straight away the live feed, how it is being edited and made telecast worthy, and what happens in the live output production. So it's not a very easy job. So if you want to do a career, you may think that whether you would be a reporter or an assignment guy or an input editor or an output editor with production knowledge and key precision, you will be outside your vision, but doing the most important job as the output producer. But the rest, all others are giving their best input. So that's why we get a nice television news bulletin.